Welcome to the Future is Freelance podcast, brought to you by Zolo, the operating system of the solo economy. Every week, we'll be serving up an audio cocktail of expert tips, inspired insights, and stories from the frontiers of freelancing to help you grow your borderless business to new heights and live life on your own terms. So kick back, grab a snack, and let's get started. As we talk about the future of freelancing on this show, we've been sharing some amazing stories of the adventures that knowledge workers can enjoy these days to work from more or less anywhere. Indeed, as we discussed with Lily Szabo on the last episode, more and more countries are rolling out enticing visas and incentive programs to attract remote workers to bring their overseas income and spending power to new locations and communities all over the world. It should be a win-win, as when we travel, we spend that income in local hospitality and retail, often travelling more slowly and mindfully than the average tourist, and doing our best to live like local people in terms of accommodation and activity choices. However, these very choices do have an impact on things like the prices of everything from restaurants to rentals, and when we move on, we don't easily appreciate the long-term effect that we've had on the communities we visit. There's recently been some tangible backlash aimed at the digital nomad community in various locations around the world. And while I don't necessarily agree with the idea that remote workers are solely responsible for exploding rents and gentrification in desirable locations, I do think we need to be sometimes more mindful of our impact and actively seek out ways to support the global community of which we are part. The trouble is, it's not always obvious the best way to do this. And I know I'm not alone in failing to engage sometimes, especially when the gap seems to be so huge between my innate privilege as a knowledge worker freelancing and the people in places I get to visit. The person serving me coffee while I work in their bar all day can feel too great a distance away when you're just passing through, and never mind the person begging on the street outside. What can we do to help when we're just one person on our own? Well, good news if you share these feelings, because today's podcast guest, Tarek Kholoussy, has made it easy for you. Through his network, Nomads Giving Back, you can do just that. Get involved in local projects on the ground in different locations and do your bit as a volunteer. You can gain so much from the experience, from deepening your relationships with local people and the online community, as well as extending your own experience and skills. Even online, you can get involved, especially with Nomads Skillshare, a more recent offshoot aimed specifically at democratizing the kind of skills which help us all to live the location-independent lifestyle we've chosen. Each one teach one, and spread the word. It's as simple as that. You can spread the word about the future is freelance too, by the way, helping other people discover our work when you like and share and review us. And this might look slightly different depending which podcast app you're listening in, but there should be somewhere you can subscribe or follow or give us a like, or simply share a link with your friends and family, especially if you feel inspired by this conversation. Enjoy the chat with Tarek. He's a great speaker, a lovely person, and the perfect pioneer for this movement. So Tarek, welcome to The Future is Freelance. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks. Great to be here with you, Maya.
Lovely. Well, I'm really looking forward to exploring the work that you do with Nomads Giving Back and Nomads Skillshare. But first of all, I found out recently that your name means nomad. So you were obviously predestined to do this work from birth. Having said that, I assume that you didn't realize that when you were a newborn. So I'd love to unpack a little bit about your journey to how you ended up where you are, which is going to be of interest to our listeners, and doing the work that you do.
Yes. Isn't that wild? I actually only found that out about 4 years ago, which was
Brilliant.
5 years into my nomad journey. So when I was actually looking to give my first big talk announcing the vision for Nomads Giving Back. And I was just doing research about my name, thinking if there's something fun there. And it turned out that when I Googled it, one of the meanings means nomad. And I was just blown away of the serendipity there.
Fantastic. So what were you doing before your nomad journey started those years ago?
Yes. So a lot of people don't believe me now when I say this, because if you look at me kind of look like a hippie with a man bun and the jewelry. But I used to be a corporate suit and tie kind of guy from New York City, hopping around the skyscrapers. I was born and raised in the States. Family's from Egypt, and I just ended up going down this kind of more traditional path of going to a decent college and studied business. And so what we all did was just we went to New York and got big corporate jobs. Um,
Mhm.
and I was working for consulting, then some business development, and also some hospitals and in the wellness space. And I did this for like a dozen years. And it was quite a roller coaster of a path because I
Mm.
started that journey in New York just 2 months before 9/11. And that really had an
Mm.
impact on the world and on my own personal
Yeah.
journey. Um, and I in that consulting job I started out with, that company got caught up with the biggest corporate scandal in our lifetime with Enron. I was working for Arthur Andersen,
Oh,
and
okay.
I lost my job with the rest of the company and went unemployed for half a year. And during that experience, it was really challenging for me. So I felt really vulnerable, and I knew that
Mm.
I never wanted to feel that vulnerable again. So I prioritized my corporate career, my professional growth above anything else, including my personal growth. So about a dozen years later, when I finally felt like, okay, I feel secure, but every time I got a promotion, I would feel good for a moment, but then something still felt off. Something was missing. And a few serendipitous things happened in my life around the same time in 2013 that gave me the courage and the passion to take a leap into the unknown, buy one way ticket, and become a nomad.
Fantastic. It's so interesting because everybody's story is different to how they come to this freelancing and globally mobile lifestyle. And yet there's so many common threads about there being a corporate past, but being something missing, and sometimes some kind of tragedy or incident forcing you to reevaluate. And then finally, that leap of faith into the unknown.
Oh,
So, what did you do then? Where did you
100%.
go?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's actually it relates to my life. I mean, there were these four moments that happened, and one of them was
Hmm.
I had a loss in the family, and my cousin, who was about my age, suddenly died. And for me, that was a real wake up call.
Wow,
How short our life
that's
is.
awful.
What kind of
Yes.
experiences do I want to have in this lifetime? And sometimes it's the inspirational moments that happen, and sometimes it's also the wake up calls that happen that kind of
Mm.
you know make it make the change feel like it's time to make it happen.
Yeah.
So what did
Sometimes
I
we need a
do?
few signals, don't we? We need a few of those things to come
Yeah,
together to finally snap us out of it. So yeah, where did that take you initially?
yeah. So I got into running marathons and getting more into my wellness, which was something that I didn't think was in my cards because I was not really living a healthy
Mm.
lifestyle with all the natural stress that came with that kind of lifestyle.
Mm.
And the day before I left, I ran a marathon and I took a flight straight to my motherland, Egypt. And I caught up with some family. And then I went backpacking in Southeast Asia for a little while. And then I did one of the most meaningful experiences of my life. I went to Kenya uh, to
Oh.
volunteer in a fellowship with an organization called Kiva, which is all about microfinance. And
Oh
this
yes.
this
Yeah.
this 4 month project was just so eye opening to experience a culture and a place and the people that I've never would have met, never met before, like in my
Mm.
life. So yeah, it was just so inspiring to see the resilience of the local Kenyans, the beautiful, the richness in their culture, and then also these innovative impact leaders that are creating incredible social impact organizations um,
Mm.
that are having a real impact on the local lives. And so I just walked away from that experience, like my eyes were wide open, my heart was full, and I was just ready to make a big change in my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you had that early volunteering experience as well as seeing the real impact that appropriate technology and innovation in really challenging circumstances. That must have been just mind-blowing after the corporate lifestyle that you've been working in before.
Oh my God, you couldn't get further on the spectrum. I mean, I worked for companies like Goldman Sachs that has some of the highest paid people in the world. And working in that kind of culture where, and I'm not knocking it. I learned a lot and a lot of amazing people there, but it is a different life. It's a different lifestyle, different standards and everything. And then to go all the way to Kenya, and I spent time in the slums and in the villages, and it's just so interesting that there were friends and colleagues of mine that were, probably in the top 0.1% of the income bracket that were miserable. And then I was on the other end of the spectrum in Kenya with people at the lowest echelon, maybe making $1 or $2 a day if they had income. And some of them seemed happier. They felt more connected to nature, more a stronger bond with their family unit and their community. And it's just interesting when you think about those types of things in life, about what actually makes us happy.
That's so interesting, isn't it? And I've experienced a similar thing at the other end of Africa years ago, that when it comes to entrepreneurialism as well, there's a much more direct connection then between people's efforts and activities and their reward, and that a much greater sense of fulfillment of a good day. And whilst there are people managing really barely around the poverty line, there are others who are very clear about the impact of their efforts, and that seems to provide a great sense of satisfaction as well, which I'm not sure you get in the corporate cubicle.
I couldn't agree with you more. Some of the jobs I had were for very large companies, some of the biggest in the world. And, you can't help but feel like a cog in the wheel, or not as attached to the direct mission, because you're just playing one small part. And, it happens that way, the way capitalism works. And, it's all about scaling up and getting people to be very specialized. But when you do work as an entrepreneur or a freelancer, and you have a broader perspective on everything, then you actually get closer to the clients or the people you're servicing. And it's more rewarding, I think, in general. I mean, again, I don't want to knock it, especially if there's listeners, that were working for large companies. But I think for a lot of people like me, I need to feel the impact. I want to know that Tarek that something has changed because I was involved, as opposed to being, one of my friends worked for a company, a big one, where when they resigned, they don't actually even have a conversation with anyone. They check themselves out on their website, and it's like, goodbye, there's your closing package. And like, I don't want to be a number, I'd rather be part of something where
you're making your mark.
Yeah,
well, I don't think there's any doubt there, Tarek, that you have made your mark on the world through the social impact project Nomads Giving Back. So it seems to me it's clear that was the direction you were pointed in with that, from that very first nomadic experience. So please tell us about the organization and the kind of projects that you get involved with presently.
Oh, thanks so much. And the credit goes to my amazing global team. We have more than 100 volunteers and ambassadors around the world that are just so passionate about impact and our shared mission to try to inspire everyone to connect more locally and give back to local communities. And now with Nomads Skillshare, to empower people to learn the skills to live the life they imagined. But to rewind a bit about what we're all about and the story behind it, after I started traveling for a while and backpacking and getting more into wellness and personal growth, I fell in love with running. So I started running marathons wherever I went. And I came across Bali, where I'm with you today, talking to you today from. In 2016, I was spending some real time here and stumbled upon this concept called the co-working hub, right? And I walked in, and there are these so-called digital nomads. And in my career path in the past, I actually worked remotely for years. Even when I was living in New York City for 4 years, one job was remote. And so I really quickly grasped the potential of the idea of working remotely, and especially in a paradise like Bali or other places around the world, where you can have a higher quality of life for a lower cost of living. But also, more importantly than that, is the ability to connect with these cultures that are so different and eye-opening, and creating these memories with like-minded travelers and digital nomads. And what I liked about the nomad movement is that they were often, facing their fears, chasing down their dreams, leaving the conventional life behind, and often creating something. And at that time, I knew that I wanted to get more into social impact. So I often asked these nomads, how do you connect with locals, and how do you get back to the communities? And most of the time, they'd say the same thing: I don't know. But if you figure it out, let me know, because I want to do the same thing. So when I heard that enough times, I recognized there's this gap, there's opportunity to really help mobilize the collective power of the movement, and to try to help solve the question, I want to get back and I don't know how. At the end of the day, all these expats and nomads and freelancers living abroad, we're a collection of individuals. We're not part of some big organization that has a corporate social responsibility division where if you wanted to give back in some way, you just go there and they have all these partnerships and programs. So I thought that there's this opportunity here for everyone involved. And when I look at my experiences volunteering in places like Kenya and Zambia and Sri Lanka, other places, those were the most meaningful moments of my life. And I felt that there's this growing, as the expat and nomad movement grows, there are these growing bubbles where we initially wanted to crave something. We were craving something different culture, different experience. But a lot of us were outside our comfort zone. So then we recreate a new comfort zone outside our comfort zone and hang out with similar people from similar backgrounds. And a lot of the businesses that people frequent, like the co-working hubs and the gyms and the cafes and the bars, there's usually a fee that's create the socioeconomic barrier for the locals to participate and join. So it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy where we're not really connecting with the people where we are. And sometimes it's easy to forget that you're even abroad. And I really wanted to help burst those bubbles so everyone can have a more meaningful experience.
And what sort of areas are you working in now? Because I know you have specific hubs that you focus your activities. So I'd love to know some examples of those projects and locations.
Yeah, sure. So we launched Nomads Giving Back almost 4 years ago now. And I was living in Medellin, Colombia at the time. And, to help solve the question, I want to get back and I don't know how, we wanted to, not recreate the wheel, but really come in very humbly and ask the local impact leaders, how can we help? How can these foreigners that are around help out? So we brought together these different types of people and gave them a platform, whether it was like a panel discussion, a networking event, a mastermind. We did some Skillshare programs like related to language or digital skills. We did some impact trips, but really just trying to help raise awareness. What are the local social challenges? What is going on, and how can we potentially help?
Yeah.
And the one thing that a lot of these nomads have in common are digital skills, and a lot of these social causes, or basically all of them, as far as I know, are always lacking in terms of something, right? Whether it's funding, certain skills, time, access to reaching new types of people to help support their mission. So that's the gap we've been aiming to fill throughout the years. And you're asking about geography. So we launched it in Colombia. Actually, I brought on my first teammate, Manuela, 4 years ago. And I'm happy to say that she is still with us and our chief of staff, and became a nomad herself and moved to Bali to help continue to grow the organization.
Fantastic. Well, that's really sort of proof of the pudding then, that you're creating opportunities for local people and helping them unlock that lifestyle. I mean, I really love to think of this as part of the mitigation of this backlash that seems to be emerging in certain parts of the world against digital nomad privilege and people who come along but don't integrate and affect accommodation prices and access to services. Do you feel that there's scope to expand this further? I don't know, even here in Europe, it seems that remote workers are being implicated in pushing up accommodation prices and things, even though Airbnb were doing that for years anyway. How can we spread this message further?
Yeah, that's a really hot topic, especially these days. I feel like every day now I'm coming across some sort of article or post about this.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, listen, every time there's a disruptive change in the world, there's winners and losers.
Right.
And those with privilege have a head start to capitalize on disruptive changes, right? Um, and a lot of people, I think, oversimplify the impact of tourism by saying it's positive because we're bringing revenue, we're adding to the GDP, we're spending money here. But I think it's important, and that's partially true. But I think it's important to look at where is the money going, following the dollar. And I know a lot of people in these nomad hubs, including myself at times, we gravitate towards spending money on these places, not really paying attention or even sometimes caring, like, who owns it? Where's the money going? So a lot of the cafes and restaurants we go to are foreign owned. The gyms, the co-working hubs, sometimes they're not foreign owned, but they might be owned by the top 1% of the country. And the question is, does that trickle down to the local population? And I think partially, of course, it does. There's sometimes new jobs, but it's probably not proportionate as much as we all would like, especially because costs do go up. The cost of living do go up, and I do hear about a lot about the real estate. And one counter argument I heard about that nomads don't raise the costs, or expats and tourism don't raise costs, is that it's the duration of the stay, right? Like if you're staying for a week in a hotel, that's not going to affect a local, or a month or two in an Airbnb. But actually, that doesn't really keep in mind domestic tourism, right? There are people within a country that want to travel within their country.
Yeah.
Right? So it absolutely does affect local communities. It's just a matter of how much. And I think the trick is that we need to be realistic that some economic forces that are happening, we can't just stop it, but we can be more mindful and mitigate the potential negative consequences and try to add to the positive consequences. So, for example, aiming to shop more locally, being more inclusive in the activities that either you're supporting or leading. What about a lot of us are entrepreneurs that are hiring, and why not try to hire more locally if you're staying longer? I mean, obviously it's a little tricky if you're moving week by week, but if you're spending a year at a time, why not hire someone to be your virtual assistant or social media manager that you can go meet for coffee and go old school again and actually meet in person?
Yay.
And I think it's a win-win for everyone, because we are benefiting so much from these places that welcome us with open arms and big hearts. And why not feel good about also empowering them with opportunities that we may have brought, with privilege. And of course, there's a lot of hard work that goes into everything that everyone is doing, but it does help when you have a head start. And so if you do have a head start, why not, share the value with the people around you?
Well, yeah, that makes complete sense. And you've obviously formalized this into an offshoot of Nomads Giving Back in the form of Nomads Skillshare more recently, which is, I think it's something that should be of interest to every freelancer, because not all of our listeners are travelers. Maybe some of them would like to be more, but they are all people who, because they're working for themselves, they have some discretion over their time and activities. So I'm really interested in unpacking how volunteering and sharing skills can be mutually beneficial. What do the participants get out of it? Not to put too fine a point on it in terms of their personal development and fulfillment.
We started with Nomads Giving Back, and the three big pillars we focused on have been advocacy, which is like using your voice for social good, supporting fundraising efforts, and volunteering. We have a free volunteer matching program where anyone who is interested in getting involved in sharing their skills in some way, we help identify a good match for them with a partner that we support. And then along the way, like you said, we launched Nomads Skillshare because our team realized that we asked ourselves, what was the most meaningful things that we did, and how could we potentially have even more of a direct impact?
Mm.
And so, what's something that a lot of the nomads have? Digital skills. I mean, that's basically how they're been able to live the lives that they're living by working while they travel. And then you look at some of the gaps in these nomad hubs and around the world, and it's often skills.
Mm.
It could be a language skill that blocks them from entering the tourism economy. But the next level up after that is a digital skill so they can enter the global economy. I mean, I'm talking to you from Bali right now, where tourism is close to 80% of their economy here. And when the pandemic hit, it was devastating on the incomes of the
Mm.
families to support themselves. Um, and if an ideal world, they might have more of a diversified, balanced way of taking care of their families financially. And so, fortunately, Bali's back, and a lot of these places around the world are back at it. But if someone has the choice to potentially open their laptop and tap into millions of jobs, as
Mm.
opposed to feeling only that they have the opportunity to get jobs right around them. And these types of jobs in hospitality, for example, tourism, they often don't have the ramp up potential that you could with a digital skill.
Yeah.
Like for example, someone might become a virtual assistant and start out at making a few dollars an hour and increase their income tenfold over time. Or social media and digital marketing, it can increase 10 or 20 or 30 fold. But if
Yeah.
you're a masseuse or a waitress, that potential isn't there.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of your listeners are freelancers and remote workers, and there's a lot of lifestyle benefits that come from extra time not commuting, that you can take care of your family and other needs that you might have, or goals that you want to develop, and even if they want to move around, so there's a lot of value. And I don't think, actually, like, this might sound surprising, but I don't necessarily love everything about how the world's changing, how we're going
Mm.
remote. I'm a little bit more old fashioned, where I'd rather meet people in person. But there's so many new opportunities that are not possible without leveraging these new technologies. And I think it would be great if we can be more inclusive in the way we operate in our businesses to bring people along the ride. Um,
Definitely. Yeah. And
so along,
yeah.
yeah. So uh, yeah, please go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking that I've been reading some scary stuff recently about the next wave or the next pandemic. I think we all learned over the last few years that a lot of those immediately local income streams and businesses that depend on travel and tourism, they're so vulnerable. And it was those of us who have got the capacity to work from home, to work from our laptops, wherever. It's given us the liberation now, but it also kept us going during those times. And the more we can upskill the rest of the world to work like that, the more future proof we can make it. So, and it's got to benefit that more globally mobile community as well, because there'll be places to go afterwards. Those local economies and
Yeah,
places of natural beauty will survive, and those businesses will be there to welcome them back. So totally a win-win.
yeah, exactly. I mean, when you really think about it, even the field of education and
Mm.
learning has changed drastically. And a lot of these digital nomads, like let's take someone, a 23-year-old German in a cafe, ordering their second cappuccino of the day, racking up a tab of like $10 on their breakfast, and they're on their laptop. Let's say they're a social media manager. They might be making 20, 30, 40 euros an hour supporting their German clients. And then the person serving them might be, an amazing, hardworking person with a lot of potential, but they never had that opportunity to really tap into the digital economy.
Mm.
And maybe they're making those $10 in 1 or 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And the major difference is that example of that German, 23 years old, they're not applying their Harvard degree. They're applying, that may have cost like a ton of money, but they're applying probably a skill they'd learned from a course that they took that maybe cost hundreds or thousands of dollars. and that they spent 1, 2, 3 months learning and then developing through experience, hands-on experience.
Yeah.
And I just feel like these barriers between the local waitress and the one having the coffee, it's not that big of a barrier, and it can completely change the trajectory of their entire future economic potential. So we wanted to help kind of at least make a small dent in this disparity in this gap. So we decided to launch Nomads Skillshare almost 2 years ago, and really tap into the skills among our team, among our partners, to share these skills. And we've created courses like how to get your dream online job, how to become a virtual assistant, how to become a social media manager. And we created those courses ourselves, and now we're expanding our courses by partnering with those who already have theirs, and building collaborations so that we can really scale and provide more value for all different types of students. Anyone can really take these courses, but what we want to do is be really inclusive. So we developed a scholarship program, and a buy one, give one model. So for every course someone buys, we give a scholarship. And we have these master classes and workshops and an online community, and we have in-person events, and really just trying to, bring everyone together after this shared mission of, learning and giving. I just learned a new quote, came across a quote last week that I think in 8 words summarizes everything we do. And I'm in love with it. It is, when you get, give, and when you learn, teach.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's just that abundance mindset of expanding on what you're fortunate enough to have, and rippling it outwards. I really love that. And I think it's one of the things I really like about the global freelancer community is because we work in a global market, there's much less of a sense of competition, because we have this entire world at our feet in terms of we're not scrabbling over local clients. I think it's easier for people to share what they've got and to recommend people, to connect with other people, and to share their skills in the way you're describing is the logical next step. So that's absolutely fantastic. Tarek, I'm
100%.
excited about this. How can people get involved both with Nomads Giving Back and Nomads Skillshare? Someone's listening to this now and they're thinking, yeah, I want to give back. I've been wondering how to do that. What should they do next?
Absolutely. Just come check us out. We have this amazing global team. We're all primarily volunteers, and we're always looking for people to join our community, join our team. The easiest way to do that is just come to our websites, nomadsgivingback.com and nomadsskillshare.com. And we're really active on social media. We have newsletters and online communities on our websites and Facebook groups. And once you come to our website, you'll figure out the best way to connect with us. And we're always looking for partners. Maybe some of you might want to teach a skill, and we can all do our best to collaborate and go this way together.
Fantastic. So what sort of skills are most in demand at the moment, the places that you're working?
I would say I don't go a day without someone asking me or coming across a message looking for roles like social media managers, virtual assistants, website designers, developers, and graphic designers, in terms of like helping these social causes, including our own. On our team, we're always looking for higher level strategic people that can help us grow our social enterprise, help us with our own sustainability, so that way we can have a much bigger impact in the world.
Fantastic. And that's so interesting, actually, because you're absolutely right. Those are skills that you can certainly get entry level work in by doing an online course or, doing a relatively short learning curve. You certainly don't need an MBA and thousands of pounds worth of debt in order to get started with these skills. And also their skills, whatever you do, if you're a consultant or whatever, learning skills like digital marketing, how to do your social media will help you as a freelancer, as an entrepreneur, to improve your business, whatever that is, even if it's completely unrelated. So I think there's this sense that it can be so circular. We can all learn so much. If people
Exactly. Like like I said, like the times that I've been involved in supporting people have been the most meaningful moments of my life. And here's the thing, like a lot of us feel, and even me, still at times, I feel like powerless. Like, oh,
Mm,
there's so many problems in the world. What difference can I make? But we actually can,
yeah,
especially through collaboration, because I've seen it before my own eyes. It's people who are passionate about something, that are optimistic, that like working on teams. They're the ones who are changing the world right before our
yeah.
eyes.
Fantastic. And yeah, I think that's a really important thing to remember, that sometimes we do all have this existential angst. And I think those of us who have the privilege to travel and to work how we choose, what you're actually giving people is a way to feel better about themselves and to feel that they can accept that privilege and everything that it has to offer, and make a difference in the world. Personal example, I recently had to pull out of a charity event because of health reasons, and I was apologizing to all the people who'd sponsored me for something I couldn't ultimately complete. And somebody replied to me and said, "What you did was give us a really easy way to support a charity. Don't worry, you didn't have to do the thing.
Yes,
You gave us the link and we just clicked on it
exactly.
and gave the money. So, don't apologize for that." And I thought, yeah, okay, that's really interesting, that what it's just opening up these channels for people to do the thing that deep down they want to do anyway, but as you said, they weren't sure how to give back.
Exactly.
They don't know how to connect with that person serving their coffee, even though they suspect that they're earning a tenth of what they're earning, but they might have other things in common in terms of interest and demographics, but maybe not even a language, and they don't know where to
I'm
start.
right. I'm so glad you shared that personal story, because that's exactly what happened to me. Before starting Nomads Giving Back, I got involved supporting this fundraiser through the Bali Hope Ultra. It was Bali's first ultra marathon,
Mm.
84 kilometers across Bali. And I was so afraid to do this, both because it would have been my hardest race, but I was afraid to put my voice out there and ask for fundraising support.
Mm.
Um, and, it all worked out in the end, and it ended up being one of those inspiring days of my life. And that's what people told me that were supporting my fundraising efforts, is that thank you for creating this opportunity and to sharing your story and advocating for this cause, because I'm looking for causes that I can connect to and feel the story, feel the impact, and
Yeah,
you made that opportunity possible. So just like you. And that was the experience, by the way, that inspired me to create Nomads Giving Back months later.
brilliant.
So it's so beautiful to see the chain reaction of when you create these win-win-win situations. Our tagline at Nomads Giving Back is inspire yourself, inspire the world. And
Fantastic.
our logo is a spiral. Yeah, our logo is a spiral with a heart in the center. And first, we need to fill our own cups to a certain level that we can be in a position to empower others and help others. But when you get to that point, it all comes back to you, and it expands the spiral further and further in a virtuous cycle, so that, when you inspire others, they inspire you and you can inspire them more.
That's amazing. I think that's a beautiful note for us to start wrapping up on, because I want people to keep that spiral in their minds, and that circularity, that
Oh,
part of something bigger, and really wonderful. And you can enter that spiral at any point on it, wherever you're ready to give and engage. That's beautiful. So uh, we will obviously put all the links in the show notes to your websites and also your social communities. But if someone's listening and they want to just pull over and immediately go, can you just tell us the best places to find your projects and connect with you straight away?
yes, absolutely. Our website and our social media handles are simply Nomads Giving Back, and
Mhm.
also Nomads Skillshare
Right.
.com.
So search for that, and you're going to connect with Tarek and his team, his global team of volunteers, of which there's always room for more. And anything exciting coming up in the future that we should know about? Any projects on the horizon you'd like to share?
Yeah, we are actually launching our newest series on courses this week, all about how to manage your money as
Right.
a small business freelancer nomad. We're approaching our 4-year anniversary, so we're really excited about that. And we have some new team members. And I also just want to mention about, in terms of reaching out to the organizations, I also welcome people reaching out to me directly. So don't be
Okay.
shy. Maybe I'll share my LinkedIn or Instagram or something below, but I love hearing other people's stories, so I would love to hear from you.
Fantastic. We'll stick your LinkedIn in the show notes as well then, and you'll find that it's always great to talk to Tarek, and I've really appreciated our conversation today. So thanks so much for sharing your inspiration and insight with the Futurist Freelance community. Really appreciate you, Tarek.
Oh, right back at you. Thank you so much, Maya. I really appreciate the opportunity and wonderful getting to know you.
You've been listening to the Future is Freelance podcast, brought to you by Zolo.io, who offer compliance, taxation, invoicing, and admin solutions for fiercely independent solopreneurs across the globe. From simply getting paid to launching a full EU-based limited company, Zolo has you covered, thanks to Estonian e-residency and a superb suite of streamlined business software. If you enjoyed the show, please like, rate, and comment, and subscribe to our feed wherever you get your podcasts.